So this is my favorite t-shirt quilt I've made so far, and it is my Disney t-shirt quilt. It is very long because I made up this pattern, so I didn't follow a specific set one, and it just ended up being a pretty long quilt. But I love it a lot. I worked at Disney World in 2008 and have been back and worked a couple times, but I have a very soft spot for Disney and had a lot of Disney t-shirts. So I thought I should do a Disney themed quilt. So that's what this is. And I'm going to show you some pictures so you can actually see the whole thing, and then also talk about the steps of how I made this quilt. So the tools I used to make this quilt include my sewing machine, and then one of these mats that you can cut the fabric on. I have a couple in different sizes depending on the project, but this is the main one I use. Then I used one of these, rotary blade, a couple of stencils. Now, for the larger actual t-shirts, t-shirt blocks, I used this one, which is 12.5 inches by 12.5. Now, it's got the 1/2 inch seam allowance, but it's only on two sides. So I had a problem because I cut straight around it. Well, the extra 1/2 inch was only on the two sides, so I guess I could have gone with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but I didn't, so I had to go back around and recut an extra 1/2 inch or so off of all of the shirts I cut, which was annoying, but I did it. I'm sure there was probably a better way of doing that. I just didn't know of it. And then for the Mickey heads, and for the white with all the different colors, and then for the plaid, black and white here, I made my own stencil that was 6.5 by 6.5, based off of the 12.5. Of course, I had my math wrong here, so this was wrong. So I had to go back through and cut an extra little bit off of each square in order to make them fit correctly. But you live and learn. How did I start designing this quilt? First of all, I counted how many Disney t-shirts I'd be willing to part with, which ended up to be 28. Then I sketched out some ideas of how I could maybe arrange those. I really wanted to do some sort of diamond pattern, and so I began cutting the faces of the shirts with the 12.5 by 12.5 stencil I spoke about earlier, and laying them out on the ground just to see how they would look. During that time period, I also went to a store and went shopping for fabric to have in between each of the squares, and I came across this white fabric with the yellow and blue and red spiralies, which I thought was really nice. I also saw some Disney fabric, which I thought was cool. So I sketched it out again, and then I had also found some black and white fabric. So I had to decide what I wanted to do, and so I put it on Facebook and asked my Facebook friends to help me decide what would be the best pattern. If I wanted to go with the black and white in the Mickey or the white with the Mickey. And how to arrange it, because this was a pattern I was coming up with on my own. Did I want all the diamonds to be in one direction, horizontal, vertical, both? There were a lot of decisions, and my Facebook friends helped me a lot, which was great. And I made a decision, but then I needed to decide what I wanted to do with the edges, because there was a missing triangle. So I had option with that, and figured out the math for it, and ended up deciding as the border, basically. And I sewed this all together in long strips. that meant that as I put the strips together, once I was closer to being finished, it got harder and harder to push through the machine, but it worked out. So then I needed to decide how I wanted the back of the quilt to be. So I had a lot of extra Disney Mickey fabric, but not enough to completely cover the back. And I had some extra of the black and white gingham fabric and the white with all the crazy colors fabric. So I sketched up some options, and I ended up having enough fabric for it. So I went forward and did that design. I also decided to bring the back of the Disney fabric around the front for the binding rather than putting on some sort of other binding. And then I quilted it. I just went along the strips where I put them together and along the diamonds to quilting in the ditch. That's how my Disney quilt ended up. Here's a view of the quilt. Thank you. One quick thing I forgot to mention, my name is Ashley. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, come back soon and I'll have another video for you. Have a good day.